Hello friends, in this video we will learn the concept of signals. In this video, I'll tell you what is the definition of signals and what are their basic classifications. Let us begin. Definition of the signal is appeared on the screen. It is a peaceful information either portrayed in mathematical or graphical form or can be formulated by probabilistic set of means. That's what we call as a signal. So I'll elaborate this. They say that a signal is a peaceful information. Of course, when I say it is a signal, it should convey you some information. This can be portrayed. It means you are representing it in mathematical form, means you are expressing output in terms of input. Or you can represent the same signal in graphical form also. So representation of the signal can be portrayed in mathematical or graphical form, or sometimes you require a probability theory to express the signal. Why do you require a probability? We'll understand when we will start with the basic classification of the signal. Or to actually say signal in simple words, it is just a phenomena which changes with respect to independent variable, or as you can say in the bracket, it is said that variables also. So an information which is changing with respect to maybe one variable or more than one variable. Okay, so it may have one independent variable or it may have many independent variables. So if I'm expressing a particular variable which is called as a dependent variable with respect to independent variable or independent variables, then it represents something called as signal. These are two basic classifications which says deterministic versus random signals. Let us understand the meaning of deterministic signal. See, as the name suggests, deterministic signal means something that you can determine. That's what we call as a deterministic. So those signals which can be expressed in the form of formula, okay, or which can be expressed mathematically, those signals are called as deterministic signal. And once you express the given signal in mathematical form, let's say with respect to time, then for any time that signal can be determined. For example, see, let's say if I'm representing my signal x of t equal to, let's say, t square. Now if I want to plot this, I require two axes here, right? So what I'll do, I'll have two axes over here. Here I'll say 0, this is, let's say, t, and x of t I'm going to represent on y-axis. And now if you start plotting a graph of x of t is equal to t square, then you will actually get such type of curve. And here also you'll get similar curve here. So even for negative t, since square of negative number also gives you positive number, therefore you get such type of curve. Now what my point is, this curve or this type of signal information that now you have expressed graphically also have got some mathematical form. If it has got some mathematical form, then for any time t you can determine what is x of t because you have a formula. Okay, for any time t you can determine what x of t can take a value of because you have a formula. So to put it in a very simple word, those signals which can be expressed mathematically, only those signals are called as deterministic signal. Now to give you more example, I can say, let's say x of t is equal to t. If I say x of t is equal to t, it means on y-axis we have x of t and on x-axis we have a independent variable t. So here also, if you say x of t is equal to t, then it gives you a straight line passing through origin. So you get this sort of characteristic. Now again, since this graphical information which is showing you a signal can be represented in graphical form as well as in mathematical form. Since it is representable in mathematical form, you can determine the value of x of t for any amount of t, and such signals are called as deterministic signal. Or let's say if you have such signal like x of t is equal to, let's say, cos of t, then you know that how cos signal looks like. Then this is a representation of a cos signal. Is that right? So here also, as you can see, for any time t, what is cos t, that can be represented, right? And that's the reason why they are called as a deterministic signals. Okay, so those signals which can be representable in graphically as well as in their mathematical form, then I can say that those signals are called as deterministic signals. Now let me talk about random signals here. So let us understand what is random signal. As I said, when it comes to signal, it is something that is going to convey you some information. For example, if one has to understand what is the statistic of rain in Mumbai. So first example that I'm taking, if I want to show you a statistic of rain in Mumbai. So one can represent rain that has taken place for every year graphically, like how much was the rain in year 2000, how much was the rain in 2001. Let's say we had more rain over here. In terms of centimeter, we express rain. So for every year, you can represent what is a rain. So this can be also considered as a signal, because this graphical representation giving you some information, and that information is regarding how much rain has taken place in every year, right? But nobody can predict how much would be the rain in, let's say, in the next year, that is 2000, let's say 23. Nobody can predict this. The reason nobody can predict this, because this type of information, even though representable graphically, we cannot express some mathematical formula. Nobody has in the world a mathematical formula to represent what could be the possible rain. Yes, there are experts who can at least predict, but that prediction may go fail. Is that right? And this prediction is based on the theory called as a probability. So to study such signals, to study random signals, you have to study a probability. And that's the reason why you must have seen in the definition that sometimes signals can be determined by using a probability set of means. We can have second example of random signals, like let's talk about shares in stock market. If you want to show shares in stock market, you must have seen now many apps are coming which shows you a real time information about the shares, right? And as you can see, those shares either goes up or they come down in terms of their values every minute of time. Am I right? So this is something which goes randomly, right? You cannot predict. As an expert, you can predict, but then prediction may go wrong. Is that right? So shares in stock market, if you want to represent graphically, yes, you can represent graphically, but nobody has a mathematical formula to represent shares in stock market. Also, now we are engineers, so we should also talk about some technical examples. Let's say a noise signal. So for this noise signal also, we don't know at what magnitude it will come and at what time it may come. Is that right? Because we don't have a mathematical formula for noise. Yes, after arrival of noise, we can measure how much is the magnitude. But in advance, nobody can measure what could be the magnitude and at what time this noise signal may come. So such signals are called as random signals. And to study random signals, you have to use a probability. Is that right? So now let me tell you about our signals and systems subject. This course will be telling you about a deterministic signal. So whenever we are studying all the signals in the signals and systems subject, we would be talking about only and only deterministic signals. We are not at all going to talk about random signals, but then to study a subject, you should have a complete knowledge what you are going to study and what you are not going to study. That things also be clear. But of course, in different subject, you study these random signals with the help of this probability theory. But signals and systems subject have got no scope to study these random signals. So let's move to next basic classification of the signal. So now it says single dimensional versus multidimensional signals. Very interesting type to study. Single dimensional versus multidimensional. So I'll say, let's say single dimensional, I can represent that as 1D, where D indicates it is a dimension. So when I'm talking about single dimensional signal, so I'll give you some real time example. Now just consider a room or a lab where, let's say, a temperature sensor is placed somewhere which is continuously sensing temperature at every moment of time. Let's say that temperature is getting recorded, and in the computer, that software is plotting temperature with respect to time. So how it will look like? It will look like this. So on y-axis, I'll take temperature, and of course on x-axis, we will take a time. Is that right? Now what that application is really doing, it is receiving all the temperature in a digital form, and in turn, it is, let's say, plotting that temperature. So with respect to time, let's say we have started in early morning. So in early morning, temperature was less. Slowly, the temperature rises. In the afternoon, we get maximum temperature, and post afternoon, then temperature starts falling. So we get such kind of graph maybe. So what I really meant to say, now I need to justify why it is called as a single dimensional signal. There are two variables to which we are dealing with. One of that is a temperature, the other one is called as time. Now the question is, who depends on what? Do you think time depends on temperature? Answer is no. How can time depends on temperature? We need to talk vice versa. Temperature depends on time. In that case, temperature is something is what we called as dependent variable. So this is a dependent variable, whereas T is what we called as independent variable. Is that right? Now the question to you is, how many independent variables you observe in this example? Answer is, we got only one independent variable, and that's it. If you have one independent variable, it means it is a single dimensional signal. It's very simple. It depends on how many independent variables you are dealing with. So that tells you it is a single dimensional signal. So we can also have some example. Let's say y of t is equal to, let's say, sine t. So this signal, if I try to plot, on x-axis we will have time, on an y-axis we will have sine theta, that is sine of that particular time. In this case also, as you can see, this t is what we called as independent variable. So even in this example, we got only one independent variable. The resulting signal is called as a single dimensional signal. So I'm sure you understood what is meant by single dimensional signals. Try to understand, it totally depends on number of independent variables. So now I'll give you an example of multidimensional signals. In multidimensional signal, again, if number of independent variables are more than one, the resulting signal is called as a multidimensional signals. Now, again, in multidimensional signal, we can take one type like 2D or two-dimensional signal. So let us imagine there is some photograph. It is just a photograph. So I'm just trying some object here. Okay, so this is just an object of the photograph. You know that every still picture made up of what? Basically many pixels together. Many pixels together, they come together and it forms a picture. So basic element of every still picture is what we call as a pixel. Now this pixel have got different properties. So I'm going to talk about only one property here, that is a brightness. So when I'm talking about a brightness of a particular pixel, so do you find a uniformity in brightness? Answer is no. For every pixel, you can see there is a different brightness. Is that right? And of course, if it is so, then only you can identify the object. Okay. So what I really meant to say, that for every pixel in this picture will have a specific brightness. Am I right? So let me say that brightness is indicated as B. Now, can I say that in this still picture, if I change the position of a pixel, then this brightness will change? Of course, yes. What does that mean? This brightness is function of x comma y, where x indicates x coordinate and y indicates y coordinate, right? Because how do I tell you if I'm changing the position? So change in position can be expressed as in terms of x and y. So here brightness is what we called as a dependent variable. So brightness called as a dependent variable, whereas x and y are called as independent variables. Am I right? Now the question is, how many independent variables do you observe? Answer is 2. So the resulting signal is what we called as a two-dimensional signals. Am I right? Understand that if you want to draw graphically single dimensional signals, how many axes do we require? Of course, you require two axes, right? Why two axes? Because one axis is required to show you dependent variable, and the other axis is basically used for showing you independent variable. So you require two axes to represent one dimensional signals. Needless to tell you, to represent two dimensional signals, you will require three axes, because one axis is to show you brightness and remaining two axes are basically used for showing independent variables like x and y. So again, I'll give you one more example. Let's say a three-dimensional signal. Again, I'm going to take a picture here. Similar example I'll take with a minor difference. So even though this is a picture, but this time let's say it is not a still picture, it is a moving picture. That's what we actually called as a video signal, right? So let's say this is a moving picture. So this is continuously changing, okay? In this also I have to determine a brightness of a particular pixel. So this time I can say that this brightness is a function of x. Of course, why? Because if I change a point somewhere, everywhere brightness is going to change. But also, this time it is going to be a function of one more variable, and that is time. Why so? Because since it's a video picture, so you don't see a same picture there, right? So every time, for every pixel, this brightness keeps on changing, which would be function of three variables, that is x, y, which gives you a position of the pixel, and t tells you at what time you are observing the brightness. So this time brightness is still a dependent variable, but x, y, and t are independent variables. So the question is, how many independent variables do you observe? It is 3. Therefore, the resulting signal is what we call as a three-dimensional signal, right? So try to understand. We also can take example of four-dimensional signals, and that is nothing but electromagnetic waves. Because electromagnetic waves, when they are represented with the help of x, y, and z. But this electromagnetic wave are also changing with respect to time. So in a way, they are function of x, y, z as well as time. So such signal can be considered as a four-dimensional signal. So when it is more than one dimension, resulting signal is called as multi-dimensional signal, irrespective whether it is 2D, 3D, 4D, or so on, right? Now let me come to our subject. In signals and system, we are going to see every signal which would be single dimensional in nature. Our scope is not to study multi-dimensional signals in this course. Let's move to next. So this is the last type now we are going to see in this session, that is continuous signal and discrete time signal. So this is a continuous versus discrete time signals. So to be very specific, we don't say only continuous signals, we should say it is continuous time signals, okay? So I'll write in a short form CTS. Understand? CTS stands for continuous time signals, okay? So I'll tell you what is meant by continuous time signal. So what I'll do to make you understand continuous time signals and discrete time signals, I'll make two partitions here. On right hand side, I'll tell you how to understand what is discrete time signals, okay? So what we are studying is continuous time signals versus discrete time signals. So first of all, continuous time signals are represented like this. It is x of t, let's say. Whereas discrete time signals are represented like this, x of square bracket n. So this is a standard representation of continuous time signals versus discrete time signals. But we'll study only one type at a time. So let's concentrate on what is continuous time signal. See, as the name implied, continuous time, it means this x of t value would be present for every moment of time. For every time, you will find some or the other information on the graph. And such signals are called as a continuous time signals. So we can take some examples like, let's say we have x of t is equal to, let's say, cos of t, okay? So on y-axis what we have is x of t, and of course on x-axis we have t. And if I now start drawing cos of t, it would be like this. Is that right? So what you see, that for every time this cos t will give you definitely some value. Am I right? So can I say that such information does exist for every interval of time, and therefore they are called as continuous time signal because it is continuously present with respect to time. So let me tell you about this t. This variable t, that's what we call as independent variable, can have a real value. Okay, what is meant by t can have a real value? See, t can have real value means the value of t can be 0, 1, -1, or let's say 1.5, or let's say -1.5. So possible values of t are like this. It can be 0, it can be plus minus 1, it can be, let's say, plus minus 1.5, and so on. So t can take any value, right? And that's the reason why it is what we call as a continuous time signal. Now let me tell you about x of t here. Don't get confused between t and x of t. Okay, t means it is independent variable, and x of t is what we are actually talking about, y-axis. Okay, so what x of t can have values? X of t can be real, x of t can be imaginary, and let me tell you, x of t can also have values, let's say complex values also. So x of t can be anything. Okay, so of course in cos t, if you see, this is a purely real signal. The reason why it is called as a real signal, because you put any value of t in this, x of t value always a real value. Is that right? Therefore x of t, which I have taken an example over here, that is cos of t, is what we call as a real signal. So what I really mean to say, t can have only real values, but x of t may belong to real, may belong to imaginary value, or may belong to complex value also. There is no need to get confused because I'll give you more examples for this. You need not to worry about it. Let's say we can have x of t is equal to j times t. Is that right? So now tell me, what do you think the independent variable is? Of course, independent variable is still time. And this time can have always real values, right? That is 0, plus minus 1, plus minus 1.5, plus minus 2.5, and so on. There are infinity values of t now you can talk about when it comes to real value. But every time you put any value of t which is a real value, the resulting value is always a complex value, because as you can see, it is now clubbed with j. It is j dot t, right? Or j multiplied with t. So any value of t as a real value, whenever you substitute, the resulting x of t value that you get is a purely imaginary value, and such signals are called as imaginary signals. Okay, and such signals are called as imaginary signals. That's the reason why I said that x of t need not to be real. It can be real, it can be imaginary, it can be complex, but please don't forget that the value of t, that is I'm talking about this, okay, which is always real in nature. Let's say I can also have x of t like this. Let's say e raised to at plus j t, like this. Now as you can see, this x of t is a complex number. As you can see, it is forming a complex number, right? Or it is actually complex variable rather than saying complex number, because complex numbers are constant. Complex variable are variable in nature because they are varying with respect to time. So as you can see that for different interval time t, you will get x of t at some complex number. Am I right? And such signals are called as complex signals. But one thing is pretty sure, that whether x of t is real signal, imaginary signal, or complex signals, all of them are continuous with respect to time. Okay, because for every interval of time, this continuous time signal will have some or the other value, and therefore they are called as a continuous time signal. You will understand the consistency of continuous time signal being continuous when you will actually understand what is meant by a discrete signal. So let us start discussing what is meant by a discrete signal. So in this, when I say discrete time signals are represented like this: x of square bracket n. See, there are some books which sometimes write this x of n as x parenthesis n. Okay, this is also sometimes allowed, but then I'll tell you, In standard books, you will always find discrete signals represented like this only, x square bracket n. Okay, so let's talk about some discrete signals now. Discrete time signals. Okay, try to understand now. It is not continuous. Okay, discrete time signals. Therefore, in continuous time signal, we represent signal as x of t, where t is independent variable, that is time. Here, n is also independent variable, and of course, it is also time. But let me tell you, this n can take only integer values. So n can have only integer values. What does that mean? See, possible values of n are like this: 0, plus minus 1, plus minus 2, plus minus 3, and so on. They are purely integer values, right? Of course, it can be positive, also it can be negative, it can be 0 also, but it cannot be equal to, let's say, plus minus 1.5 or plus minus 2.6. Such type of intervals, value of n, are not allowed in discrete time signals. What does that mean? When I'll actually see a discrete time signal, you will actually see the information is present only at integer values of time, and for non-integer values you will see information does not exist or information is not present, and therefore such signals are called as a discrete time signals because they are not present continuous with respect to time. They are present at fixed interval of time, and that are integer position values. So I'll just show you one example by drawing this x of n. So what I've drawn is an axis here: 0, 1, 2, 3. What we will have here is, let's say, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, and so on. We can have x of n like this. So as you can see here, let's say it is 5, let's say it is 2, this is 2, this is minus 1, this is minus 1, this is, let's say, 2.5, let's say this is minus 3.5, and so on. So try to understand it. When I say it is x of square bracket n, this n is called as independent variable and it can take only integer values, but the value of x of n can be again real, imaginary, or complex. So try to understand this. When I say discrete time, okay, it has nothing to do with what is x of n. Okay, discrete time means it is going to show you the characteristic of small n, where small n is actually time and called as independent variable. But in discrete time, we don't represent time as t, we represent time as n, but n can have only integer values. As you can see, like for 1.5, no information is given, 2.5, 2.6, no information is given. So as you can see, information is not present continuously with respect to time, but it is expressed discretized in nature, and that's the reason why it is called as a discrete time signal. So I'm sure now you understood what is meant by discrete time signal. So I'll just summarize it. For continuous time signal, representation is x of t, whereas for discrete time signal, information is represented as x of square bracket n. Next, independent variable is t, independent variable is n. T can take only real values. Here n can take only integer values. Rest x of t. See, when I'm talking about x of t, I'm talking about amplitudes. Okay, amplitudes x of t can belong to real or imaginary, or it can take some complex value also. Same goes for x of n here, that is magnitude or amplitude I'm talking about. This can be real, this can be imaginary, or in fact it can be complex in nature also. Okay, now this discrete time signal x of n, you have seen how it is represented graphically. So I'll just show you the structure here. So let's say this is 0 interval time, This is n. So I'm just allotting some random values here. Let's say this is 3. This is, let's say, 4.5. This is, let's say, 2.1. Let's say this is minus 1.5, minus 1, and let's say this is 2. Okay. So for every interval of time which is integer in position, we know what are their respective magnitudes or respective amplitudes rather. So what do you see? As you can see, x of n present only at integer positions, that is n equal to 0, then n equal to 1, n equal to 2, n equal to 3, n equal to minus 1, n equal to minus 2. Such x of n can be also represented in sequence form. How do we represent it in sequence form? So what I'll put a curly bracket in which I'll now copy all the amplitudes that I see here from left to right. See, the first amplitude what I see is 2, comma. Next amplitude is minus 1. After that, what we have, next amplitude as 3. Next amplitude is 4.5. After that, we have 2.1. And finally, what we have is minus 1.5. So you can also show your x of n in sequence form like this. And now, very, very important, you have to observe what is the value of x of n at n equal to 0. As you can see, it is 3. So we show an arrow mark here. This arrow mark indicates the value of x of n at n equal to 0 position. So once you have this arrow mark, now one can easily determine if this 3 is actually x of 0. Is that right? X of 0. Then of course this 4.5 is x of 1. Of course this minus 1 belongs to x of minus 1, and so on. So one can actually determine with the help of that arrow mark. So that arrow mark is very, very important. So try to understand this x of n can be represented graphically as well as in sequence form like this. Of course, in detail also we will see how this x of t and x of n are operated with examples also. So I'm sure now you have understood the concept of signal, and also we have seen the basic classification of signals. Along with that, we have seen certain examples to understand. And of course, this x of t and x of n we will be studying in detail as soon as we are progressing further. Thank you.